Welcome back, guys. This is the King of Average podcast with your lovely host, Medic, and your half-decent host,
BB. I know my place. Not again.
We're introducing back the hookah because that's a must. But yeah, today is going to be yet another exciting conversation. And we're going to be talking about gratitude. A huge part of me wanted to say gratuity again. But then I was like, no, that's not the conversation.
If you say gratuity 3 times, will a wild Joed Nifusi appear?
No, the freaking guy. Might as well. Since we're on it, bro, let's bring up that story.
Yeah, I'm so down.
So it was Ramadan.
It was my birthday out of all days.
It was his birthday, bro. And it was we went to this like really nice Brazilian steakhouse, and the waiter was very accommodating. We had to pray and we had to break our fast and so on and so forth. So he took us to a separate room and made sure that we were taken care of and that we were alone, that we weren't bothered. And then from there, like, service was good. So overall, it was a great experience.
Except the food. The food was kind of whack.
Yeah, Fogo was definitely better. Fogo de Chao.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, for the most part, it was good. Until the bill came. The bill came, whatever. It was good. The guy didn't charge us extra for anything. Everything was very straightforward. So, but what I noticed that we were like a table of maybe 10, roughly.
Roughly 7 to 8 people.
Let's just say 7 to 8. There you go. And there wasn't any gratuity for such a large, like, bill. So the guy held it back, hoping that we would just be as generous as possible. So what we ended up doing was we split it within like the 8 people. We split it. 3 people paid. So essentially, I took on maybe 2 other payments. Other person took 2 other payments, and for 2 other people, or 3 other people, and so on. So
I didn't pay because it was my birthday.
So I was one of the guys. So I put like a decent tip, and someone else paid, put on a decent tip. The third person was Joed, and so like he went ahead, he wrote something down, and we just walked away. We all paid, everything is chilling, we're good. So we walk out, and now we're at the parking lot, which is a couple steps away from the facility. And we're just chilling, we're talking, we want to know what masjid we want to go to for Tarawih, what's the vibe, are we going to get boba, are we going to get ice cream, what are we going to do after, and we're just trying to plan out everything. So, but for the most part, it was like a kickback. And the waiter that helped us out came outside trying to be all slick, and he was like holding up a receipt. He's like, hey, someone forgot to sign. Joed forgot to sign. Joed's like, oh, that was me. I know I didn't sign. It doesn't really matter. The guy's like, oh, well, I noticed that you didn't leave a tip. Joed's like, I know. The guy's like, why didn't you leave a tip? Joed's like, I don't ever leave tips. Joed never leaves tips. Like, he is firm. You do a good job. That's your job to do a good job. Like, it is what it is. That's just his mentality, right? I do my job and I get paid. No one ever tips me, or I don't ever expect a tip for doing my job. Then why should I do the same towards you? That's his mentality. That's not ours. Kill me. So the guy then is like, oh, I'm sorry if I did a bad job in service and so on. Like, I'm sorry. Joed's like, no, you actually did a pretty good job. The guy's like, then why didn't you leave a tip? Joed's like, I don't tip. The guy literally went to savage mode. Guy flipped on us. He said, what did he say again? He's like, so you're basically calling me a piece of ish. We're just all confused. We're like, how did the guy get there? None of us. Joed's response was so respectful. He's like, dude, you did a great job, but I just don't leave tips. No smoke whatsoever. No sass. The dude was like, so you're basically calling me a piece of ish. Goes up to Joed like he wants to start something with freaking 7 or 8 dudes standing outside. Like, long story short, someone, just a part of the group, eventually had enough. He's like, yo, like, here's some money. Just go screw off. And that was the whole gratuity story. So, moral of the story is if you're gonna go out to that steakhouse near John Wayne, don't, because the food's mediocre, and the waiters are gonna be out to get you for a tip.
So I mean, there is I guess an argument against Joad for this,
There is, there is.
especially as it relates to like today's topic. You know,
Okay.
one form of showing gratitude is through tips, right? Um, but then again, like it's kind of like it's kind of like an imposed part of our culture here in America. You know, it's heavily imposed. You know, and I'm not saying that I personally have anything wrong with the idea of giving tips. I think it's actually really nice, and I think whatever. But for like certain situations, like dude, it takes you 4 seconds to make a cup of coffee. Like I'm not. It's just not like I'm not gonna.
I hate that so much. When I'm at a coffee
Yeah.
shop and they're like, "All right," I pull out my card and everything's done. They're like, "All right, if you could just fill this out over here."
Just answer this question. Watch the coals. Watch the coals.
I'm like, I'm heating it up. I'm like, there you go. And it's like tip, 15%,
Can you just fill this out?
20%,
Yeah.
1,000%. Like, I'm like, dude, do I like? You feel obligated. You feel forced. Like you have to leave a tip because the other person's not looking away. The other person's like, "Can you fill this out?"
Yeah.
And they'll turn it back to be like, "We'll give you the dirtiest look if you say no tip." That's why you gotta click no tip and just quickly you got a phone call. But that was the whole tip culture, man, that we're in. So I mean, I give out tips. I don't care, right? Especially if someone does a really good job, because I know when a person is just doing their job, and I know how it feels when a person goes above and beyond. When they're not really, when technically they shouldn't. They don't really have to go above and beyond, but I appreciate that. Because when I worked in corporate America with like enterprise and stuff, I used to go above and beyond, and it takes extra effort. It takes extra just awareness that you want to treat this person as well as possible, so that way they can be your recurring customers. Because it kind of falls back over your whole personal brand. But yeah, man, tip culture can be a little crazy, but I don't want to get into the whole tip culture thing. Let's move on. So gratitude. So the first thing that we want to talk about is
Well, I wanna kind of like pull your card on this one.
oh, dude, let's go. Yeah.
When you hear the word gratitude, what do you think of?
First word, appreciation.
Nice.
You acknowledge what the person has done, and you appreciate it. And you could show them like in a physical way, just like a tap on the shoulder, give them a thumbs up, or just be vocal about it. Like, hey man, you did a great job. And even if you don't necessarily leave a tip, hey man, that word of what I'm saying, of encouragement or just that appreciation, that'll leave a smile on them. You may have made their day. Just off saying, I acknowledged you. You've done such a great job. Good job. Keep it up. I don't feel like any tip, any amount can ever satisfy as much as just a good, like, hey man, good job. So that's what comes to mind. And then when it comes down to gratitude, what comes to your mind?
No, appreciation is the only thing that I really, appreciation is definitely kind of like the go-to word that I think of when it comes down to gratitude because, yeah, absolutely, same thing. Appreciation for me, or gratitude for me as it revolves around appreciation, is finding the little details, to be grateful for. Finding the little details. And, I'm not going to turn it into like one of those, tree hugging ways of looking at it where it's like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I woke up today. It's like, okay, yeah, cool, dude. Like, I get that, You should be grateful for the fact that you're, alive and you're breathing and stuff like that.
Count your blessings.
Count your blessings, absolutely. But like, there's kind of like a, I don't know, like it almost doesn't have like a genuine feel to it. But that's just me. You know what I mean? That's just me. But when it comes down to like the little details that I'm talking about, is like, like let's say for example, you see someone who's, in a wheelchair, and it kind of reminds you like, holy smokes, bro, I have two functioning legs. You know, like I can walk upstairs. You know what I'm saying? Like I can get in and out of a car. You know what I'm saying? Like it's these things are easy to me. Appreciation for the fact that your lungs can breathe on their own, your sight, your heart that beats on its own. You know what I'm saying? Like finding appreciation in the little details. I know we're going to eventually transition to this type of conversation, but it's like finding appreciation in, the man who supported you your entire life. How many times has your father paid rent or paid the mortgage or put food on the table? And like how many times has he done it compared to the number of times you went out of your way to recognize it and let him know how much you appreciate that he's done it? You know what I'm saying? Like we're 28, right? In your 28 years, how many times has your father bought food for the house? How many times has he paid rent? And how many times did he come up to you and flip it and rub it in your face?
Never.
Never, right? And the number of times he's done it, think about it. Like we've got big families. We're both families of 6. And that's feeding a lot of people, you know? Even though you guys have a food business, it's not, there's difference, So feeding that many people, twice a month you go your family goes shopping, sometimes 3 times a month, right? The amount in groceries alone, just the number of times. But then once again, how many times have you gone out of your way to say thank you? So when it comes down to gratitude, I think I find the beauty in seeing the small things and then showing appreciation for it, being grateful for it, because that's where I know I personally, like when someone shows me appreciation, when someone's grateful for the little things that I do for them, for the consistent things that I do for them, and I don't ask for anything, ain't no way the battery just died, bro. That's what makes me kind of like find affinity to that person. I'm just like the moment they tell me, hey, by the way, thank you. Hey, I know you didn't like mention it or it wasn't obvious, but I want to say like what you did there was really awesome and I noticed it and I appreciate you for it. It really kind of like motivates me to continue doing things for others without expecting anything in return.
What I got from that is there's a sense of selflessness in gratitude, and the reason why I say that is with being selfless, you're able to not focus only on yourself. You're focusing on other people and their actions. And it's so easy for us to be so judgmental and find out and nitpick all the small details and all the small things that people are doing wrong. But how often do you actually acknowledge and you appreciate the things that they're doing right? And I always love to use the whole analogy or the whole reference of traveling and you counting your blessings. Go to a third world country where there's not running water. Go to a third world country where legit there's like your electricity could go out in any second. So like once you get back to it, you're very appreciative of everything. So it's really you're counting your blessings, and the whole thing of like words of affirmation goes a long way. I don't care if that's your number 1 love language, if that's number 5, or you really don't care about it for the most part. But guess what? If you're doing your job, if you're doing your duty, if you're being a good son, a good brother, a good husband, if someone goes up to you and tells you, yo, BB, you're doing a great job.
Aww.
That would mean the world. That didn't benefit you monetarily at all. All that did was that just recharged your battery, and that just you kept on going from there, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that just showing a little bit of gratitude goes a long way. And yeah, we could use that for the whole relationship aspect, but that's I think being showing gratitude and the whole relationship aspect is very important because life is one huge relationship. You're always going to be in a relationship with your friends, with your family, with your spouse, with your business partners, with so on and so forth. You're going to have constant relationships that you need to maintain, whether it be professionally, like, in your own personal. There are always relationships to be held. And if you show a little bit, not a lot, don't overdo it, right? Because we all know that some people are like, "Thank you, you're the best, man." You're like,
Yeah, it almost it almost seems disingenuous after a while.
it's not exactly. So you're like, I don't need to hear that. Eventually, like, it's fine, it's fine. Like you're gassing me up way too much. Now it's doing the opposite. I'm not appreciating anymore. Now it's like, stop.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the point about like whenever we travel, it's like there's certain things that we have that we take for granted. I like how you mentioned that point because gratitude is something that is easily forgotten, right? Having appreciation, having gratitude towards things, because those examples specifically, right? Those it's exactly that point. You get used to your environment, you know, and it gets to a point where you start expecting things, you know. You're like, I know, like you don't even think like this is guaranteed for me, and that is, and this and X, Y, Z, right? Like no matter what happens in life, I know for sure I have all of this stuff, you know. And those things that you might be so casual about that you don't even have appreciation for anymore,
Like a bug in my back.
like a bug in your back.
I appreciate it.
I mean, well, somebody else experienced it. That's their norm in a third world country. But yeah, it's like it's not until you lose those things or you go to somewhere where they don't have those luxuries until you realize, holy smokes, what we have is so easy, you know. And I think that's the scary part is when like specifically, especially in like in a relationship setting, you know, because we talk about like your dad's been doing it for so many years and he hasn't complained once. He understands this is his duty and he gets it done every time, you know. Um, and as a man, we're supposed to provide these things blindly. We understand this is our role,
Yeah.
And so our role to the point where like it's not even like obviously there's like reward in being a good father, a reward in being a supporting husband and whatnot in the Islamic sense, but like we're talking about your duty as if like if you're slacking on these things, they're gonna come up heavy on the day of judgment.
It's a punishment.
They're gonna come up heavy against you, right? And so that's kind of like the mindset that we're in, So it's not even a thing of like you can't even ask for appreciation for these things, like not in your right mind, because at the end of the day, it's expected of you whether you like it or not, you know. But I'll tell you what, kind of like connecting back, when you do get that appreciation, once again, it motivates you to do it again and again and again. But when that appreciation, when those little details, those things that you're constantly doing for your loved ones, when it seems like your effort is neglected, some part of you might start feeling like a sense of misery, right? You might start getting a little bit miserable. And you start thinking to yourself, like, dude, what the fuck? Why am I doing this for these people who don't even care?
Resentment.
Yeah, absolutely. You start getting those feelings of resentment. And that's why I feel like definitely, a healthy relationship is going to have tons of gratitude, tons of gratitude. You have to be able to put your ego aside in those situations where you tell yourself, am I being too nice? Should I be too nice? You know what I'm saying? Like you have that conversation with yourself, like, are they gonna think I'm just being a little, weird about it? No, dude, go out of your way. Just be like, yo, I noticed what you did and I appreciate it. Keep it simple.
Doesn't that suck? Where like you have to have that conversation with yourself. Like, am I being too nice?
Yeah.
Like it's a negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
That like you're actually being too nice.
Yeah, it's almost as if like complimenting someone costs something. Like what are you losing? What are you losing in return? And that's why like when we had our first episode with the Mogul Insider, and we were talking about the whole idea of like just you should be okay. I was trying to say like you should be okay with like freely complimenting people, and you guys were like, oh well, and then Adam was like, compliments, they need to be qualified. Like if they come from like they need to be qualified. They need to come from someone who's qualified to give the compliment. I was like, huh, like what? You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a big fan of that idea because even though I understand it, I 100% understand it. If Kobe's gonna compliment you on you playing basketball, you're gonna feel amazing. I totally get that, right? But for the common folk, us included, everybody included, when you're genuinely trying in life and you're genuinely working hard, kind words will feel good. Like you said, just a simple words of affirmation go a long way, you know? And like what's it like it bothered Rudy, like completely like shut down that whole idea because like, dude, imagine like, like you don't have to be the master of janitors to tell a janitor, "Hey, I appreciate you." You know what I mean? Like, like I'm not flipping, the elite janitors of America, to be able to tell a janitor like, "Yo, dude, I really appreciate the work you do in here," and like, you know,
I feel like with that mindset though, it's like it's very limiting to who you get to compliment.
right? Absolutely, absolutely. It's not even about limiting who you get to compliment, but it's also like if someone tells us, for example, like, "Yo, dude, I watch you guys' show, great job." We're just gonna be like, "You mean nothing because you don't know the industry." Like, bro, what? Like, dude, it's just a compliment. Say thank you and move on.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think I definitely love the idea that like, bro, being kind doesn't cost you anything. It really doesn't. And even in a lot of situations where you feel like, you know what, if I take the higher ground, it's really gonna hurt my ego. It's really gonna hurt my pride. Chances are you're gonna resolve the problem that's like that's existing. You know, so why not resolve it? Why not take the route of being the bigger person if it's going to mean moving forward with a sense of calmness for both of you?
I'll tell you why not.
Why not?
I'll tell you what holds you back. Ego.
Me? Oh, right.
Ego.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. So it's like when you feel like you're being too nice, you feel like you're losing power. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy, dude. No, I wanted to what's it called? So like the
You want to bring up the book that you've been reading for the past 3 years?
4 years. What's it called? No, so that is another thing that I find really, really sick about human nature.
It's sickening. Yeah.
It's so sickening. It's like this whole concept of like kindness equals weakness, you know? And it's like if you're naive, if you're nice, if you're soft, people automatically see the opportunity to take advantage of you. And that it just boggles my mind, bro. Like it is the yeah, here's the thing, like I recognize it's part of human nature. We all experience it, we all feel that way, right? You see someone who, like, let's say for example, this happens, I'm assuming all the time for you, where it's like you literally see someone shorter than you and you're like,
I'm better than you.
I can take them. It's light work. They don't mean anything. They try to teach you something. You're like, who the hell are you? Like, I get it. I sometimes feel it too, but it's like, why do people expand on that?
Wait, why are you making me feel seem like a douche?
Not a douche. You're just a giant. That's why I said like you probably feel this often because the majority of people are shorter than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You are a douche. I mean, let's not skip off that.
Facts. But I feel like when it comes down specifically to like learning something from other people, I try to keep my ears as open as possible, regardless of if someone's like a little kid, regardless if they're like my age, regardless if there's old. It's like in order for me to listen to you, you don't necessarily have to be older than me. The whole Arab mentality of like the culture of you have to respect your elders and what they say is basically like it's word, it's right. So it basically means if someone's a little bit younger than me, it's like, be quiet, kid. I'm better than you. I'm older than you. Doesn't mean jack nothing. You know what I'm saying? So like, also too, like linking back to the whole thing of like gratitude is being, and I said this before, but being self-aware is so important because look, when you count your blessings, like I was over at the masjid the other day for khutbah last Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and the sheikh was talking about gratitude, subhanallah, and what he talked about, which I did just randomly, or I used to do, but now I do even more because now I'm actually aware of it. He was like, if you ever walk by and you see someone making dua, whether it's in prayer, whether just they're by themselves and they just got their hands in the sky and they're pleading to God, they're begging God for anything. They're having that connection with God. Even if you walk by and you acknowledge it, you're like, may Allah grant this guy. Every single thing, every dua, may Allah grant it for him. So being aware of it, and I know you're kind of laughing because you're like, oh,
I'm already thinking of like funny, like he might be saying some crazy dua.
things, right? But like, but being aware of your surroundings and being aware of counting your blessings at the end of the day will get you far because we're always going to be comparing ourselves to the success of others. We're going to be comparing ourselves to like, oh, why is this like freaking 12-year-old a multimillionaire and I'm 28 and I'm not? What the heck? I thought I'm older than I should be having more. It's BS. Because at the end of the day, right, the grass is greener on the other side. So the whole analogy is just a lack of gratitude. When you have to compare yourself to others, when you have to compare your situation, your success, your life, your upbringing, everything, the person that makes you Mustafa, when you have to compare Mustafa to another individual, that's wrong. That's a lack of gratitude because you're not gratifying yourself. Because basically you're lowering yourself. You're lessening every single thing that you are. Every single like good things that you've taken advantage of or you've taken for granted and you're just pushing it to the side. I'm not good enough. Why? You pray. You're up on your deen. You work. You hustle. You this. You that. Like, the camera's off. Don't lessen yourself. It's the whole analogy of, once again, the grass is greener on the other side, but I heard it recently where it's like, no fam, the grass is going to be greener and where you freaking water it. If you have that patch of earth that you're just neglecting, of course it's going to be greener on the other side because the other person is nurturing it. They're making sure that it is as in top shape as possible. So that way, of course, you're going to look over and you're going to look at yours. You're like, dude, this is dead. The land is absolutely burnt. So like, don't lower yourself. So just as it is important to gratify or to show gratitude towards other individuals, what's wrong with gratifying or showing gratitude to yourself?
I like it. I thought of a couple cool things. You mentioned, neglecting like your patch of grass, right? There's a couple things. One, I think what's really interesting is when you neglect, like your life situation by comparing yourself to someone else's life, and the first thing you begin doing is you begin justifying all your failures. And I know we love talking about justifying failures because
focus on the only focus is your failures.
The only focus is your failures. Excellent. I'm just gonna repeat stuff you said. But yeah, it takes you down this road because you're sitting there, you're comparing yourself to others, and you're like, this person has, their family's better off, right? Oh, they shop at Whole Foods, Oh, he wears Nikes, like, all right, cool, dude. But like, yeah, so you compare yourself to others, so then you begin to justify your failures, and so I think that's a very, very dangerous path to go down. But the thing about neglect that I wanted to bring up. But anyway, so the whole idea of neglect, what I thought was really, really cool is like when you neglect your quote unquote patch of grass, right? What you're also doing is you're neglecting your strengths. You're neglecting the values that you should be proud of. The values that you carry as an individual that you should be grateful of. and you need to take those. You need to recognize those strengths of yours and play to them. Play the game of life to your strengths, not to the strengths of others because they have a greener patch of grass. No, play to your strengths. Be grateful for what you have in terms of your qualities, your virtues, right? And when you figure out how to use those to your advantage, that's how you'll nurture your own grass.
I got a question for you.
I have a question for you. You go first.
I'm going to ask first.
Yeah.
So my question was, when you find yourself comparing like yourself to other people and just talking negative about yourself and only focusing on all the negatives that you have,
You're going to love my answer.
what do you do to acknowledge and get past that little funk?
So I'm a big fan of the idea of like recognizing your insecurities, recognizing them, and then understanding that they exist and not denying them. But before that, my mind immediately goes into what's it matter on the day of judgment? My mind immediately goes when something is bothering me to the point where like I'm starting to like freeze up like a deer in the headlights. You know, sometimes you get so deep in your thought, like you literally haven't, you realize you haven't moved in like 8 minutes, and you're like, what the flip was that? You know, like when was the last time I blinked? And like it's genuinely just putting a lot of pressure on you. Like I literally immediately go into, like, let's say for example, okay, maybe I'm not as tall as I want to be. Maybe I'm not as muscular as that guy. Maybe I'm not as rich as that guy. Maybe I don't drive that car. I take those things that I might be ungrateful for or I might compare myself to, and I literally go, what's that going to matter on the day of judgment? Who's going to pull up on the day of judgment in their BMW that's like super tricked out, super expensive? And God's going to be like, fast pass, you just flip and zip right through. What's that gonna matter on the day of judgment, right? What's it gonna matter that I'm not the tallest person in the room? What's it gonna matter that I'm not the richest person in the room? You know what I'm saying? What is any of that gonna matter on the day of judgment? A lot of not even a lot of times. 100% of the times, the things that we like compare ourselves to are worldly things. When on earth have you heard somebody complain out loud and they're just like, man, I flipping hate myself, dude. I don't know as much Quran as that person. Like, when was the last time you heard something like that?
Never.
You've never heard that, you know? The only thing that, like, maybe you can remotely find similar is somebody who was like, yo, dude, imagine how lucky some of those Sahaba were when they found out that they were guaranteed Jannah because they were like mentioned in the Quran. Or like the Rasul spoke about them, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he said, you want to know why this person is a person of Jannah? Like, how lucky are those guys? But you never hear somebody complaining about something like that. You're always comparing yourself in worldly matters. You're always complaining about the luxuries of life. You know what I'm saying? And so immediately my mind goes directly to, will that matter on the day of judgment, yes or no? And it's a very simple answer. It's a hypothetical question every single time. So it immediately puts my mind at ease because, alhamdulillah, in Islam, what are we taught? It doesn't matter if you're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white, whatever it is, the only thing that raises you in the eyes of Allah is your actions. It does not matter. So that's why the whole idea of neglecting your strengths in life, right, and not being grateful in life because of like whatever reason. Look back at your virtues. Look back at the qualities that you have as a human being. Look back at your values. How do you carry yourself? How do you speak? What is it that you do? What is it that separates you from people in a very non-worldly sense? Take those qualities, place them as your strengths, and move forward with those.
So there's
Great question.
There is a line that I thought about right now, and it goes something like, neglect is a form of disrespect. And to dive into that, it's very, doesn't really need to really go into that much, right?
Yeah.
It's very, neglect is a form of disrespect. When you neglect your spouse and what they're doing, when you neglect, forget the spouse for a second, right? Let's neglect the spouse. If we're like focusing,
Chapter 2, neglecting the spouse.
let's just focus on ourselves. When you neglect all the good things that you're doing, God, you're disrespecting the heck out of yourself. And in a way, you're disrespecting Allah, because God made you that way. God gave you those strengths and those weaknesses. But at the end of the day, what brings me peace when I find myself in that funk is I start counting my blessings, but then also I start acknowledging, like, why am I mad? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I even comparing myself to with this worldly thing, to this person, to these people, to this group? Why? And then what's the benefit of it? Almost like a little spin-off of what you say. Is it like, is it important at the end of the day, at the day of judgment? Obviously it's not. But then in my case, it's like, I'm still gonna hustle. I'm still gonna be able to continue all the positive things, and I'm gonna double down on it, because that's who I am. Because just as many negatives as I have, what brings me peace at the end of the day is that I know for a fact, no one has to tell me this, for a fact, I know that my positives outweigh the negative. That, God, I have a whole bunch of positives. I have a whole bunch of like just my mentality and the benefit that I bring to other people and also just to myself is way more beneficial. The scale is heavier on the good than more than it is on the bad. So the whole concept, once again, of basically neglect is a form of disrespect is simply you need to get your ish together and focus on the good, man. Focus on the good. Because just as much bad as we could think about, as we could critique about ourselves, or maybe we could critique about other people, it's so challenging for us to critique someone in a positive way. All the good things that they've done. Because eventually you take that for granted. So you know that you're a hustler. Yeah, it's what to be expected. We don't drink. We take that for granted, right? We expect that. We don't drink at all. But then at a social setting, when we go out for for at least for me, it was like back in the corporate, someone would be like, yo, Malik, it's happy hour. Like, why are you drinking a lemonade? I'm like, oh, like my religion, I'm not allowed to drink. I don't do it at all. Not even a sip, man? Seriously? I'm like, no, not at all.
Bro, never in your life?
I don't care. Because I know the greater purpose. But then, guess what? That person is going to go up to you and be like, Malik, I respect you for that. So, with that being said, it's like, stop neglecting all the good things that you have going for you. Because if it's like the whole self-fulfilling prophecy, if you feel like you're a piece of crap, if you feel like you're worthless, if you feel like you have nothing, no benefit to add to this world, then eventually your worst enemy, you're going to turn into your worst enemy. All the things that you fear in this life will eventually happen, because that's the only thing that you focused on, as opposed to maybe if you only focused on, or you focused on for the most part, all the good things that you're doing, and as you said, you're doubling down on it, you're going to be the best version of you. So even when you feel insecure, even when you feel like you're in some sort of a funk of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, turn it around. And God, it's easier said than done, but like, start voicing, write it down, all the positives that you bring. I'm good. I'm a good Muslim. I feel like I'm a good person overall. Just keep on adding, and eventually you're like, that wasn't that bad. No, I'm tripping out. I'm tripping out. Go about your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I wanted to add in the whole conversation about like comparing yourself to others is recognizing that there are certain things that are out of your control. You know, when you compare yourself to others in terms of like maybe physical traits, right? Which is obviously the bulk of a lot of people's insecurities. You kind of have to get to a moment where you just tell yourself, you know what, this is completely out of my control, right? And I thought about that because you mentioned the whole idea of like uh, how it could be disrespectful to Allah. Allah made you this way. Whether you see a reason for it, whether you see a wisdom behind it or not, this is what you got. And if you're not happy with certain physical features that you have, there's a lot more physical features that you could be grateful for, you know? So it definitely is disrespectful to Allah, especially uh, to be comparing yourself in terms of like the uncontrollable things in your life, things you can't change, you know? And
Right.
um,
Things you can't change. So one thing I am gonna add too is it's gonna somewhat sound weird, but I swear it's gonna come in. The whole concept of someone's basically like your trash, someone else's treasure.
mm-hmm,
Meaning that if you think you being 6 foot is not good enough, you being muscular is not good enough because you could be more muscular. You being making a certain amount, but you're not good enough, you're not rich enough. To someone else, they're praying for those features.
that's everything for them.
That's everything, man.
So actually, that's actually really good because I wanted to ask you. It's a good transition because I wanted to ask you a question. Um, to what degree is it okay to look down on others? Now, I wanted to phrase it that way in order to make it sound like, huh? But think about it.
In what degree is it okay to look down on others?
Yeah, because like you look at others who have like more than you, for example, right? And you compare yourselves to that. You compare yourself to them, and so you become ungrateful for what it is that you have. But like you just said, you don't recognize that what you have, somebody's looking up to you for it. So to what degree is it okay, obviously not to look down on others in a disrespectful way, but like more in the sense of like to compare yourself to others who are less fortunate, for example. Once again, not in a disrespectful way. Don't make fun of them. You know what I mean? Ha ha.
No. But like,
take this L.
But
you get what I'm saying?
not like actually like let's flip it from like the less fortunate to like maybe that person that you're comparing yourself to. That now you're lowering yourself to that person because you're thinking that person is just way better than you. I'm sorry. Think about like, and it's not being a hater, right? But like, think about they have all these positive things. They're driving this car. They're wealthy. They're successful. They're this. They're that. But they got some demons too, man. Everyone has their demons. So to go on from there, it's like if you're gonna compare yourself to someone else, keep going. Dig deeper. Don't only think about all the good things that they have going on for them. Think about some of the negative things that they have too, and that will make you be like, you know what? Like, not that you're better than this person at the end of the day, not trying to get to that, but just as you're going to compare yourself for only the positives, you got the negatives too, fam.
Or compare yourself for only the worldly things.
You got the negative too, man.
They could have all the worldly things, but I got all the spiritual.
But homeboy doesn't, like, for example, right? And from an Islamic perspective,
Say it, bro. Say it.
Home guy doesn't pray. Like, homeboy doesn't pray.
Home guy.
Home guy.
Allah is a home guy.
He doesn't pray. He is misguided. He drinks. He turns up. Zina, adultery, and all these things that he's not shy of, because guess what? You know this because all you got to do is just hit up the guy's Instagram. You're going to see every single story of everything that's going on. He's broadcasting his life. So what I'm trying to get to at the end of the day is you're going to focus on all the positives of a dude. That dude has some negatives too.
I was thinking more of it in the sense of
it humanizes them.
I was thinking in the sense of like like back to the example of like a third world country. Like you're not looking down on those people, but once again, to what degree can you look at their situation in order to help you become grateful for yours?
So that's the best situation, and that's why we both keep on bringing up the whole travel to a third world country.
Hmm.
Whenever I go to Tunis, I swear to God, I come back and I'm like, dude, thank God.
For real.
And it's not to disrespect the people there, but it's like, alhamdulillah, that I'm in this situation. When your average male is only making about like 1,000 dinar or so, which equates to about like $300-400 a month over here, that's tough. So it's like you get to see other people's situation, how they live, and if anything, that I come back hungry and I come back inspired because I want to, like, you feel a newfound purpose of life where you're like, I thought my life was bad. I have nothing to complain about. If I thought my life was bad, they got it worse. They got it worse.
Yeah, I think what's funny is I think what would be really really nice is figuring out a way to like to kind of develop the sense of gratitude so that it really does become part of like an everyday thing, so that you don't necessarily have to go through extreme measures for you to see a rough situation and then become grateful. You know what I mean? We're 50 minutes into the recording, and I want to kind of like at least
No way.
yeah. And I want to kind of like at least transition the conversation back into like a relationship setting before we finish it off, because I think it would, as an individual, when you develop the ability to become more grateful in the small things in life, in the large things in life, in every moment of your life, right? When you develop that constant sense of gratitude, you will genuinely be more happy as a person, you know? And there is no surprise to it because even like it's the craziest thing ever. But like one of the ayahs in the Quran that basically says, وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, and when you are thankful, I will increase you.
Yes.
I will increase you, right? So whatever it is you're grateful for, whatever that's why it's important to also remember the small things. You know what I'm saying? If you know what I'm saying. Pause. To be grateful for like anything and everything in your life, right? And then find yourself to even become grateful for the things that maybe you're insecure about, and watch how God might increase you in it.
So that's powerful. Say that one more time, the translation of it. Be grateful.
When you are grateful,
yes.
وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ.
Yes.
When you are grateful, I will increase you.
So think about it like this. God will increase you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to give you things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like monetary stuff or maybe like a new car randomly and stuff.
And even though it doesn't necessarily mean that, but that is technically also an expected return.
But I take it, the way I understood that is if you're able to see if you're able to be optimistic and you walk down the street and you're like, alhamdulillah, it's a clean road. Thank God I'm walking. Thank God this. Thank God this. Thank God that. Then eventually you start realizing other things to be grateful for. So you start increasing your overall perspective, your optimism. Just you find more and more and more things, because eventually, if you start complimenting things, it's like a snowball effect, right? You're like, what else am I gonna compliment? What else? Like I like that. Oh, like I like that too. And you know what? I never noticed that, but I like those lights too.
Mm-hmm.
So like, the whole concept of like, if you're grateful, then God will give you more. But then like, I didn't take that from like a monetary or maybe like here is this, but I think like maybe like God will give you more insight. God will give you more perspective. That lens is not narrow; it's more wide. God will upgrade your view, your vision.
Yeah.
So that way you find more things to be grateful for.
And it's crazy too, because it's like, the whole concept of like, the only thing that I want to introduce talk about like that example where they spoke positive things into water, and then they looked deep down on like the molecular level of the water, and it created like these beautiful images. And then they spoke negative things into the water, and then when they looked down on the molecular level, it created ugly images.
Really?
Yeah, like there's an actual study about this. Like it's flipping insane, right? And it's nuts because it's like, think about it for the example of food. How often do we eat? A lot, right? If you find yourself constantly becoming more grateful for the food that you're eating, and every time you eat, you don't find a reason to be like, oh, this food wasn't good. You know what I mean? But rather, even if it was decent, you're just like, you know what? Alhamdulillah, that was some bomb food. You know what I mean? I'm grateful I was able to eat. Boom, boom, boom. It's almost as if the food starts to taste better after that. You know what I'm saying? And there genuinely is, I'm trying to think of another example, but it's like basically almost like the idea of putting positive energy into something will reciprocate positive energy back. You know what I mean? Not to sound like I smoke crystals, but that whole concept, right? It's easily correlates to the whole idea where it's like if you become more grateful and you become more appreciative of the things around you, those things will almost in a sense reciprocate a positive energy back to you. And, you know, kind of like what Adam was explaining that one time, everything becomes rigged in your favor, you know? So I'm a firm believer of that. And then one thing I wanted to also mention before I guess we dive into the whole relationship setting, but 17 times a day, think about it. Every rak'ah that we pray in our prayers, every unit of prayer, when you come back from ruku', what do you say?
Allahu Akbar.
Sami'a Allahu liman hamida.
Oh, from ruku', I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. Sami'a Allah. Allah has listened. Allah has heard. Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. The one who praised him, right? And usually alhamdulillah like has like a rough translation to thank God, right? So when you become more grateful, right, for the blessings that Allah has given you in your everyday life, in your every second of life, when you become more grateful and you praise Allah, chances are He's going to be more receptive to what you ask Him for. Because you're showing appreciation. And I'm so glad I mentioned this because talk about a sick transition, my guy. Bro, think about it. We literally said it like multiple times already.
I really hope you talk about what I want to say.
So let me recap real quick. You praise Allah, you thank Allah, Allah becomes more receptive to your dua. Cool? You praise your family. Okay, this one's a very specific situation. Your husband's providing everything, right? He's not giving you the flippin', the fanciest Mercedes or whatever. He's not buying you the Chanel bags, right? He's not buying you new shoes every once in a while. But he's providing, he's supporting, and he's never slacking on any of it. The more you appreciate, the more you're grateful, very similarly, the more he's going to be receptive to giving you more. Because that's just, maybe there are situations where men are not like that. But like I said, for us, that is something that we believe. If someone is going to show me gratitude for even the simplest things that I'm doing for them, I'm going to want to give them more. So I thought that was a sick transition right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a relationship setting, it is going to make the relationship overall so healthy when you just so simply show gratitude to the other person. And, this isn't, obviously it needs to go both ways, right? This isn't just about like, oh, men, we're the providers, so that you must always be appreciating. Like, listen, if a woman is consistent with that, it's a beautiful thing. And it's, once again, it's a very healthy thing to do. But even as a man, you got to absolutely have appreciation for the things that she's going to do, Yeah,
you can't discount.
You cannot discount, because once again, if you neglect,
because she can, you disrespect. It's a form of
disrespect. Straight disrespect. Absolutely.
But like what I was gonna like link it to too is like you talked about how like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like here you go. You talked about how like with God, He will listen to you because you're so thankful.
Sami Allahu liman hamida. Like
right?
Arabic,
So,
my God.
but like, look, think about this. Say if I'm a random person and I come up to you and I'm just complaining. Yo, Malik, how's your day? Oh man, do you want to
I already
listen,
know where this is going.
bro?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
want to listen to
I don't
me?
want to hang out with you anymore, bro. Stop.
You don't. But if it's like, yo, Malik, how you doing, man? Alhamdulillah, dude, my day was amazing, man. I got to do this and this and that and that. You're gonna be like, I'm listening. I want to listen. Tell me more.
Yeah, people who tell good stories.
I want to be around you, man.
You want to be around them all the time.
So like, so the whole concept is like, dude, if God's wanting to like listen to you when you're grateful, how about everyone else? It really it links into everyone else as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a beautiful concept where it's like, yo, you got to check yourself at times.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you do have things to complain about. I don't care how optimistic you are. There are going to be negative situations or occurrences that happen in your life, but you need to be thankful. You need to be you have to have some sort of gratitude for the things that are going right in your life.
What do you think of gratitude as a form of motivation? Let me give you an example. Let's say you did me a favor, okay? Let's say you did me a favor and maybe you could have done it better, right? But instead of me complaining, because you still went out of your way, you still did me a favor, right? So instead of me saying you should have done it this way and you did it wrong, rather, I then told you, yo, man, I really appreciate you stepping up and helping me out. Don't you think that's going to motivate you to do better next time when you're helping someone?
It will, but like not rephrase, but ask that question one more time.
What do you think of gratitude as a form of motivation?
So when I find that I'm enjoying something, as humans, you want more of it. And you always want better.
And we do enjoy praise.
So if I enjoy working, then I'm going to want to work more.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm making money from it, then I'm going to want to make more. If I'm enjoying, any sort of concept. So like the whole thing of like with gratitude, finding gratitude, that inspiration comes from like if you have gratitude and it's going well in your life, you're going to want more of it. So you're going to want to be more like you want to have that. You're going to boost up your gratitude. You want to have more and more.
You're going to boost
more.
up your effort.
Exactly, bro. The higher the gratitude, the more effort that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I use that as motivation. And another thing too is like, and I think I've said this in the past, is like last Ramadan, right? I gave my zakat. And it was to a foundation where they were building a masjid in like a third world country, somewhere in Africa, I forgot. I think it was like Ghana. And I donated a decent amount. But then I was so like I was very thankful that I was able to give that amount. But at the same time, it was almost like I want to give more. And inshallah, next year, I want to hustle. I have to hustle more so I can give more zakat. It's kind of interesting, right? Because you're like, usually when you spend money in general, right? You're like, I don't want to spend that much money.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of steep. But then it's like, if you know it's for a good cause, and you know it's an obligation, but then like, it made me want to work harder, to strive more, so I could be that person. You don't need 10 other, people to give donations. I could be that, like, yo, I got this. 50 G's, 100 G's, I got this. I can. I'm good. Here you go. Let's build a second mosque. Focus on everyone else. I'll build the first mosque. So I use that as motivation for me to be like, yo, I need to work harder.
So I mean,
so I could provide more.
That's actually really interesting because that's like almost 100% the opposite of the question I asked. But that brings up a very good point, though. The idea of giving and how that gives you a sense of satisfaction, right? I mean, well, you did mention you're kind of like thankful because you were able to give, but that's usually when you give, The cool thing about it is you get so much satisfaction from it, even if those people don't show you any gratitude.
You know, it's crazy. I donated a certain amount, and I forgot. I forgot how much that amount was.
Uh huh. I think it's really cool because even in Alex Hormozzi's book, $100 million offers, there was like this one quote that he put that basically said, "If you don't think money can buy happiness, you haven't given enough away." Did a June bug get caught in the?
Yep,
Wow. Oh,
second one. It's homie.
nice. Um, cool. I think. Well, I'm very grateful for this podcast
I
and this
definitely am
episode.
too.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the hookah and the mosquito repelling candle.
Yeah, I do. Shout out Citronella.
Citronella. Shout out to the homies in the sex. Cool. I think with that being said,
Take it away, Papa.
I'm pretty cleared out. Yeah. With that being said, we appreciate you for tuning in and staying this long. Hopefully you have. If you did enjoy the video, don't be shy. Slap down a like. Send us a subscribe. And definitely drop in the comments what your thoughts are. If you think we're straight tripping, or if there's something positive you have to say. Also, if you have any suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about, definitely put them down in the comments as well. Otherwise, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of the King of Average podcast with your boy BB and
Medic.
and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.